Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. The United States has declared it will begin blocking all ships entering or leaving Iranian ports starting Monday. This comes after peace talks in Pakistan ended without an agreement. The South Korean government says it will continue to maintain its emergency economic response system. The authorities plan to maintain emergency meetings at a top and senior level and check affected items on a daily basis. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has been ousted, with the opposition securing a landslide election win, ending his 16 years in power that included repeated clashes with the European Union while maintaining closer ties with Russia. Attention is now turning to how election winner Peter Magyar will reshape ties with the EU and Western allies. We begin this morning with the latest on the conflict in the Middle East. Washington has declared it will begin blocking all ships entering and leaving Iranian ports from Monday morning, U.S. time. Iran has warned that such action will be met with deadly whirlpools in the Strait of Hormuz. This comes even as both sides project openness to further talks after their first round of peace talks failed. Our Oh Soo-young has the latest.
U.S. forces will begin blockading maritime traffic in and out of Iranian ports from Monday after negotiations between Washington and Tehran broke down in Islamabad. In a post on X on Sunday, the U.S. Central Command announced that measure, saying that the blockade will be enforced impartially against vessels of all nations entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas, including all Iranian ports on the Arabian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. CENTCOM, however, clarified its forces would not impede freedom of navigation for vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz to and from non-Iranian ports. The maritime measure follows the failed 21-hour talks in Pakistan between U.S. and Iranian delegations. U.S. President Donald Trump said Iran refused to give up on its nuclear weapons ambition and declared the U.S. would soon begin the blockade. He added he had instructed the Navy to intercept vessels paying passage fees to Iran and that the U.S. would soon begin destroying mines laid by Iran along the strait. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy Command warned against any wrong move in the strait, saying military vessels that intend to approach the waterway under any title or pretext will be considered a ceasefire violation and will be dealt with severely. However, Washington and Tehran appear to be open to further talks. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian reportedly told Russian President Vladimir Putin that a deal with the US is not out of reach if, he says, the Trump administration abides by international law. Trump told Fox News Sunday Morning Futures that Iran hasn't left the bargaining table, and he predicts Tehran will come back to give the US everything it wants. Experts say the failure of the first round was perhaps expected, but should not lead to escalation.
Neither side may have wanted to give the impression that they came to an agreement too quickly. They could be opening themselves up for criticism at home that they may have given in too much or too easily. So in and of itself, that is not necessarily the problem. But if on substance they remain this far away from each other and there is escalation simultaneously, that certainly doesn't bode well.
In the meantime, Oman has called for an extension to the 2-week ceasefire set last Tuesday to allow more time for the US and Iran to continue dialogue. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
So the United States and Iran have failed to reach a deal after 21 hours of high-stakes talks in Pakistan over the weekend. For more on this, we're joined today by Professor Mason Ritchie, Professor of International Politics at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Ritchie, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says Iran is choosing not to accept U.S. terms, while Iran says it did not expect a deal in the first meeting. What are the main points of disagreement between these two sides?
Yeah, so, obviously, Vice President Vance, has a certain way of framing this to blame Iran for the failure of this negotiation. Negotiations are rarely a question of one side accepting another side's terms, except in case of absolute surrender, which may be what the U.S. wants, obviously. So we saw Vance, Steve Witkoff, a real estate developer, and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and also a real estate developer, met with their Iranian counterparts, including the foreign minister in Pakistan and Islamabad. There was no agreement reached. This was not a surprise. First of all, you could consider this the first round of negotiations. Frequently this is not going to lead to something anyway. But also, more importantly, I think there's still significant distance between the two sides' positions. And the main sticking point that seemed to come out of it, really two of them, were in the first place, very immediately, what would happen with the 440.9 kilograms of Iranian enriched uranium at a 60% level, which would in theory allow a production of 9 to 12 nuclear warheads, and then secondly, Iran's desire to continue or to impose a toll on the Strait of Hormuz. There are other areas that are also, under a significant contention, including Iran's, larger nuclear program and its regional role as a problem for instability in the Middle East region.
Right, and after the talks fail, President Trump is now saying the U.S. will block the Strait of Hormuz. What happens next? Where does the conflict go from here if a deal isn't reached before the two-week ceasefire ends?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. Iran's already saying that, if this blockade goes through, that would constitute essentially a violation of the ceasefire anyway. The U.S., would argue that Iran has itself also violated the ceasefire in the hours and days after the ceasefire announcement took place. So we are going now into a period where the United States seems to be arguing that the Navy, the U.S. Navy, will blockade entrance to and exit from Iranian's ports and begin at least some type of operation towards some of the demining parts of the Straits of Hormuz. The question, of course, especially with respect to the blockade, is whether or not Iran will react kinetically. Will they fire missiles or rockets at U.S. naval ships? And if so, would they manage to hit them? And if so, what would happen there? So there's obviously a significant escalation risk there. What one would, I think, hope, and probably one could imagine this is the case, is that both sides, both the U.S. side with the blockade and the Iranian side with its response, both rhetorical and otherwise, would essentially be trying to gain leverage for a second set of negotiations to come up in the future. And let's just hope that the ceasefire manages to hold until they can get that type of meeting scheduled.
Right, we'll have to see how that goes. And Israel and Lebanon, they're also planning to hold negotiations in Washington. How do you think those talks will play out?
Yeah, I should be careful here because I'm not really an expert in either Israel or Lebanon, to be bluntly honest with you. But my understanding is that in significant degree, those negotiations are partially in support of the larger U.S.-Iran ceasefire. So, if the ceasefire itself between the U.S. and Iran, doesn't hold, it's questionable what type of value the Lebanon-Israel talks would have. They are still scheduled to meet in Washington, with the U.S. being, I believe, represented by its ambassador to Lebanon, Israel by its ambassador to the U.S. And I think we're not sure who the Lebanese representative is going to be. There, the stakes are, from Israel's perspective, trying to defang Hezbollah, push them back from some of the areas along the Lebanon-Israel border. I'm not exactly sure what Lebanon wants out of the situation, but I think, more generally, as I said, that this particular set of talks was in part supposed to be about supporting the ceasefire more broadly, since the Iran-U.S. war has escalated not only vertically, but also horizontally to encompass other countries in the region.
Right, I see. And U.S. intelligence agencies have reportedly obtained information that China may have sent missiles to Iran in recent weeks. So is China playing a more active role in this war?
Yeah, that's very difficult to say. My first reaction when I saw that was, okay, that's perhaps not a surprise. If anything, it might have been a bit of surprise that hadn't been happening in some capacity already. Maybe not finished systems being sent to Iran, but at least the components that would allow Iran to construct them. I've seen other experts in the U.S. who've cast some doubt on that. And so I'm actually not sure where to come down on that. Unfortunately, not many of us have privileged access to that. I would say, it would not surprise me that would be the case, not only because China may think that it's to its benefit to support at least a sort of nominal ally, or at least a nominal strategic partner. and perhaps get the United States further embroiled in a quagmire in that region. But also this might be a play from China to get some leverage over Trump in its upcoming meeting between Trump and Xi, which is still as of now scheduled for next May. So that might be a part of the tactic or the strategy on the part of China as well.
Right. All right, Professor Ritchie, thanks so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And South Korea will continue to maintain its emergency economic response system following the collapse in talks between the United States and Iran. Now, that's according to Blue House spokesperson Chun Woo-soo on Sunday after an emergency economic meeting. The meeting was presided over by Presidential Chief of Staff for Policy Kim Yong-bum, where officials assessed that great uncertainty lingers surrounding the local economy. They expect it to take significant time for Middle East countries to restore logistics and energy facilities even after the conflict ends. The authorities will maintain emergency meetings at a top and senior level and check affected items on a daily basis. Hungary's opposition teaser party has won a decisive election win, ending Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's 16-year rule. The result signals a major political shift, with Peter Mazar poised to reshape ties with the European Union and Western allies. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Hungary is set for a major political shift as the opposition TISA party has won the general election, ending Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's 16-year hold on power. The party is led by Peter Magyar, a former Orbán ally who broke away from the ruling Fidesz party in 2024. Orbán conceded defeat less than 3 hours after polls closed on Sunday, calling the result painful in a race marked by intense campaigning and unusually high voter engagement.
Dear friends, the election result is not final yet, but it is understandable and clear. The election result is painful for us, but clear. The responsibility and possibility of governing was not given to us. I've congratulated the winner. I thank you for all the great work.
Turnout reached a record 77.8%, significantly higher than in previous elections, signaling strong public demand for change. With around 72% of ballots counted, projections show the TISA party securing roughly 138 seats in Hungary's 199-seat parliament, giving it a commanding majority and a clear mandate to govern. The outcome could mark the end of Orbán's long-standing push to reshape Hungary into what he called an illiberal democracy, a model that often put Budapest at odds with its Western allies. Over the years, his government has clashed repeatedly with the European Union over rule of law issues, while maintaining closer ties with Moscow. European leaders are watching closely for a potential reset in relations with Brussels, while the shift could also influence support for Ukraine, an issue where Orbán had frequently broken ranks with EU partners. With Peter Magyar now poised to take power, attention turns to how quickly his government will move to realign Hungary's foreign policy and restore ties with key allies in Europe and the United States. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
BTS has made U.S. music charts history as their 5th studio album Arirang sits on top of the Billboard 200 for a 3rd consecutive week. According to Billboard on Sunday, the album held off strong competition from Morgan Wallen's I'm the Problem and Ye's Bully. This marks the first time any K-pop act has spent 3 weeks at #1. The previous best was 2 non-consecutive weeks, achieved by the soundtrack to K-pop Demon Hunters. The Billboard 200 ranks albums based on overall consumption, including physical sales and streaming. With this milestone, BTS also becomes the first group in 13 years to spend 3 weeks at #1. And South Korea has resumed the tourist train service to Dorasan Station, the closest railway station to North Korea, after more than 6 years, raising hopes for renewed inter-Korean connectivity and exchanges. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
South Korea on Friday resumed its tourist rail service to and from Dorasan Station, close to the DMZ, after a suspension of around 6.5 years. A symbol of inter-Korean cooperation, the station was established at a summit in 2000, following an agreement to connect railways. Freight trains once passed through Dorasan, transporting goods to and from the Kaesong Industrial Complex until operations halted in 2016 amid rising tensions. After serving as a tourist destination, it closed in late 2019 due to COVID-19, until this Friday marked a full resumption of regular tourist rail service. The unification minister and passengers alike agree that this resumption can be the first step toward peace.
The Korean Peninsula is the only place where a border is sealed with barbed wire. This railway, built under the Kim Dae-jung administration, once carried materials to Kaesong. Today is about dreaming of that era again.
My son's dream is to travel to Europe by train. Unification may be a distant goal for now, but I hope we can reconnect, travel back and forth freely, communicate, and resume exchanges.
The train travels along the route connecting Seoul Station, Unjeong, Imjingang, and Dorasan Station, allowing passengers to travel beyond the civilian control zone. At Dorasan Station, the minister once again underlined the importance of dialogue and cooperation between the two Koreas for the future.
Hostility between the two Koreas serves no purpose. Peace, coexistence, reconciliation, and cooperation are the only paths to shared prosperity. We will lead the way by recognizing and respecting the North first, and by putting peace into action, not just words.
Through May, the service will run once daily on the second and fourth Fridays, with a maximum of 120 passengers on board per trip. Starting in June, it will operate 4 times a month, running every Friday. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Facing the tough reality of higher flight fares and fewer flight options, more Korean travelers are returning to domestic destinations, especially with a program that covers up to half of their travel expenses. Our Park Gun-woo has the details.
One of the latest travel trends in Korea is visiting lesser-known rural towns through so-called half-cost trips. Under the policy, solo travelers can get half of their total spending, up to around $70 reimbursed, while groups of 2 or more can receive up to around $135. That's provided as a mobile gift certificate that can be used locally or in the region's online shopping mall after verifying their actual visit with photos and receipts of what they spent. What started as a local initiative in Gangjin-gun County 2 years ago has now expanded into a government-backed program spanning 16 cities and counties starting this April. Those areas include Pyeongchang-gun County, Jecheon City, Namhae-gun County, and Wando-gun County, among others selected from 84 applicants. In Jecheon, all 10,000 travel vouchers were sold out within the first hour.
We used to worry about attracting repeat visitors, but through this program, we expect more people to return to the region. With financial support, visitors are also likely to spend more and stay longer.
The program is also receiving positive reactions beyond those who signed up.
A lot of people want to travel these days, and with high fuel surcharges making overseas trips more expensive, programs like this are especially attractive.
But some say better promotion could encourage even more people to explore smaller cities.
I like traveling to smaller towns, but I wish it were easier to find detailed information. If there were more things to see and do, I'd be more likely to visit.
One expert says creating original content will be crucial for local regions to attract more visitors and fully benefit from the program.
To encourage longer stays and repeat visits, regions need stronger content and storytelling. Otherwise, the financial support may only result in one-time visits. That's why local governments should support private firms to develop innovative programs and attract more investment, particularly in accommodation.
He added that actively attracting talent from outside the region will be key, rather than relying solely on local efforts to build a more sustainable tourism system. And with 4 more areas set to be selected through an open call later this year, more local regions are expected to see a boost in vitality. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday made an appearance in southern Lebanon, standing among Israeli troops inside what his military calls a security zone on Lebanese soil. Speaking on video surrounded by soldiers in balaclavas, Netanyahu said the war is not over and his forces have more to accomplish and are actively doing it. The Trump administration has pressed Netanyahu to scale back its attacks and open negotiations, warning the strikes are threatening the fragile U.S. Iran ceasefire. Despite that pressure, Israeli strikes continued on Sunday, killing at least 35 more people, according to Lebanese authorities. Nigerian military jets on Saturday night struck a market in the country's northeast, killing more than 200 people. The strike hit Jili Market in Yobe State, near the border with Borno, a region long at the center of a Boko Haram insurgency that has killed thousands and displaced millions. The Nigerian Air Force said it had been targeting Boko Haram militants in the area and has since activated a formal investigation into the civilians' casualties. A local councillor told reporters that over 200 people lost their lives and many others are injured. In Haiti, at least 30 people have died in a stampede at the La Ferrière Citadel. The stampede on Saturday during an annual celebration at the 19th century UNESCO World Heritage Fortress was made worse by heavy rains. Haiti's Civil Protection Authority warned the death toll could rise, noting that students and young people were among the large crowd gathered for the event when the disaster struck. The crew of NASA's Artemis II capsule was reunited with their families in Houston, Texas on Saturday after splashdown off the coast of Southern California the day before. The 4 astronauts had spent nearly 10 days in space following the first manned trip to the vicinity of the moon in over half a century. The capsule sped through Earth's atmosphere at 32 times the speed of sound before parachuting into calm seas at 5:07 p.m. Pacific time in what was described as a bullseye landing. The mission also broke the human spaceflight distance record set by Apollo 13 in 1970, traveling 406,000 kilometers from Earth.
It's a mild and sunny start to the week, with spring heating up quickly across the country. But mornings and evenings are nicely breezy, with large daily temperature swings of around 15 degrees Celsius or even more in many places. So you'll still need a jacket early and late in the day. This warm pattern will continue for now, with daytime highs staying around 25 degrees Celsius here in the capital, about 7 degrees higher than seasonal average, feeling more like late May or early June. And this afternoon, Seoul and Gwangju will be getting up to 25 degrees Celsius. Daegu will be topping out at 24 degrees under mostly sunny skies with clean air quality nationwide. But have your sunblock and sunglasses ready. Spring sunshine might be too strong for some parts. Looking ahead, rain will return to the south coast and Jeju Island tomorrow, lasting into the following day for Jeju. Then another band of rain is expected for Jeju and the southern regions on Friday.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
curious about Korean cultural heritage?
If you are a fan of Korean culture and history, listen up. Korean cultural heritage is based on a 5,000-year history.
The whole country is like a massive museum because it possesses such diverse cultural properties. Let's not wait any longer and take a look.
First, for beginners, for those who are not familiar with Korea, let's start with the world-famous list.
You can see how Korea's beautiful traditional patterns and historical features have been preserved.
And don't forget to experience Korea's intangible cultural heritage. From Gangang-sule to Talchum, there's just so many exciting cultural heritages to experience.
These are for intermediate level tourists who have already visited Korea and its famous attractions. You might even be standing in a World Heritage Site right now.
How about searching for intangible cultural heritage that you can experience? 한소리, 제주 해녀 diving, 김장. Make some unforgettable memories while having fun.
Last but not least, the advanced level. It's the memory of the World Register. Korea possesses an extensive documentary heritage. Korea is serious about documentation and preservation.
A tour of Korean cultural heritage will become a legacy of your own.
Why not make your own Korean cultural heritage travel itinerary?
Isn't it fascinating?
From all over the world, local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% since rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like this number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million using this locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, April 15th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. And joining us for the first time today to represent Gen Z is Hire.
Great to be here today.
Great to have you, and also June is with us today.
Happy Monday, Soo-jin.
Happy Monday. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're kicking off a brand new work week, and what better way to start than by looking at a major event that got underway late last week. It's a tour many are already calling the most anticipated of the year and possibly even a record breaker. But before we dive into all that, let's meet our newest panelist. So it's his first time joining us, and he'll be bringing a Gen Z perspective to the table, as you can tell by his name tag. So, Hayo, can you start us off by telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hello everybody. It's great to meet you all today. My name is Hayo Park, and I'm from South Korea. I'm currently working as a cabin crew member, and I really enjoy exploring new insights and discussing new topics every day, of course. So I'm very excited and happy to be here. So once again, thank you for having me today. And actually, I've been a very long time fan of you all.
Also really excited to have you on today. So as I mentioned before, we're diving into the kickoff of BTS's Arirang World Tour, which finally got underway last week. And from the massive crowds to the global buzz, it already feels like this could be one of the most defining tours yet. So what's the reaction been like to the Arirang tour so far, Jian?
Well, I'm sure you've read several articles during the weekend about BTS' latest concert. Yes, BTS has officially kicked off their concert Arirang tour on the 9th of April. That was last Thursday at Koyang Stadium, performing in front of more than 40,000 fans. Fans traveled from both Korea and abroad, and in fact, lots of Korean celebrities joined their tour, including actress Ha Ji-won, Ko So-young, actor Park Hyung-sik, and Park Seo-joon, proving just how popular BTS concerts are. With all 7 members reunited after completing their solo activities and military service, the atmosphere was full of excitement. Well, one fan from the UK even dressed in a purple hanbok, or Korean traditional attire. Purple, by the way, is BTS' signature color, and we are all wearing purple right now. Well, it showed how global and dedicated their fan base is indeed. And what makes this tour even more special, more significant, is that the Arirang album became the first by a Korean solo artist, that is, to stay at #1 on the Billboard 200 for 2 consecutive weeks, 2 weeks in a row. International media have been hailing the activities BTS as a cultural phenomenon. And this tour is expected to draw lots of people. That will be 144,000 fans across multiple shows, massive scale indeed. And one of the most talked about moments was everyone singing along to Arirang all together last week. I'm sure you know about this. Daechang in Korean, singing along. We talked about this a lot in News Gen before. Right. Well, if this created a powerful and emotional moment during the concert, and if you have ever seen these Daechang sing along, well, you get some goose pimples on your arms or whatever. Well, and of course, you know what to say right now. 보라해, or I purple you.
And in fact, seeing them perform and seeing them sing Arirang especially, it's because it's such a traditional song for us.
I know.
Seeing all these global fans sing that, it was incredible. Right. And it really does sound like this tour is more than just a series of concerts. It's almost a cultural moment, especially with the global response and that massive crowd energy. And beyond the fan experience, it also speaks just how demanding and high level these performances are behind the scenes, which BTS is known for. So how tough are their songs and their choreography to kind of pull off higher?
Oh yeah, so actually I think today I'm here for this question. So from my personal experience, I actually spent about 4 to 5 years as a K-pop trainee in the past. Of course, that's a long time ago. So during the time, BTS was already at the very top of the industry, much like they are today, of course. And I still remember covering a lot of their songs myself, and even trainees coming in for auditions would very often choose BTS tracks. So I've seen firsthand how challenging their music and choreography can be. And you know what? Actually, it really takes an incredible amount of time and effort, discipline, and consistency as well. So when I was a trainee, I still remember their choreography was very detailed, physically demanding sometimes, and fast-paced. So even learning it was very challenging. And performing it live while singing together was something many trainees still as their major goal. So, and because of that level of difficulty, I think it makes their ability to deliver such large scale and also high quality of concerts, especially over such a long period of time, even more impressive. And as Jihyun just mentioned, actually a large number of fans have already joined Arirang tour concert. And I think that really shows how high the expectations were before, and actually more importantly, how well BTS has lived up to them.
And I hope one day we can see a bit of that choreography from you. So that really puts into perspective just how demanding BTS's performances are, not just for fans watching, but even for the trainees trying to keep up, which makes their longevity even more impressive, especially knowing the level of skill and discipline required behind the scenes. And that's why we're going to talk more about this. But first, let's take a look at the screen.
Tell me BTS's world tour kicked off in Goyang on Thursday, and it's on track to become the largest K-pop concert tour in history. That excitement was unmistakable, with electrifying energy at the venue and an outpouring of reactions from fans around the world, setting the stage for a bigger conversation. Today on News Generation, we explore the secret behind BTS's enduring success, even during the hiatus, and why their music continues to resonate globally, and what lies ahead for the biggest K-pop act today.
Just as we saw in the video, BTS continues to deliver strong results even during the hiatus. And that raises a key question about what's behind their lasting success after all these years. So what's behind their continuing success even after their hiatus?
Well, in fact, lots of experts, they analyze the rise of BTS. What was the factors behind their success? Well, in fact, BTS stays strong during the hiatus, during the military service as well, because they have always been close to each other since the beginning. It was all because of their strong bond, friendship, teamwork, and of course their closeness as well. Well, in K-pop industry, I'm sure Hayo knows about this term, the well-known term 7-year curse. It refers to the certain point at which many groups face member departures, even disbandment of the group. For example, groups like 4 Minute and Sister eventually disbanded around their 7th year, and BTS felt that pressure as well. And in fact, during the 2018 Mama Taesang acceptance speech, Jin revealed that the group had seriously considered disbanding because it was mentally challenging for them. And Sugar also shared the outro Tear album was written when the band was considering a breakup. So as you can see, BTS didn't hide their struggles, their difficulties. They was actually sharing their problems with their fans, and that honesty made fans trust them even more. And after that, BTS became the first Korean group to hit #1 on the Billboard 200 and has done it 7 times. So from almost breaking up to breaking records.
That's great. And then that honesty and the trust it built within the team seems to have also played a huge role. And beyond that, their connection with listeners has only grown stronger. So why is BTS's music resonate so strongly with the public?
Well, yeah, so we can see a significant increase in new listeners on platforms like Spotify, with reports saying that the number has risen by over 690%. Wow. And I think that is quite a remarkable figure, and it suggests that BTS's music continues to reach a much wider audience. So one of the key reasons behind this popularity is the strong narrative that they have built over time. So starting from songs like No More Dream, which captured the frustrations of youth, to the Most Beautiful Moment in Life series that portrayed uncertainties of growing up, and later the Love Yourself series that focused on self-acceptance and comfort. Here we can see their music has evolved alongside their own journey. So very naturally, because of that, listeners do not just consume their music, but they grow with it. And on top of that, their performances have consistently maintained a very high level of quality, which makes the overall experience even more impactful. And I also think their relatability plays an important role. So in the recent documentary released on Netflix, BTS The Return, the members described themselves not as icons of an era, but as ordinary artists. So that kind of perspective absolutely helps reduce the distance between them and their audience.
Right, so it's not just about the music, but the story and growth that people really are able to connect with. And of course, behind that journey is a global fan base that's always stood by them. So what role have the fans played in their success, Jian?
Well, I do believe that you know this fact. Without the fans, there will be no BTS in this world. ARMY, that's the group name, that's the fans name, fan base name. ARMY have always been a strong and steady support behind BTS. In fact, the latest album sold 3.98 million copies on its very first day, setting a new personal record. What's particularly interesting is that fans are no longer seen as just consumers. They are increasingly described as a value-based community. This means that they share meaning and direction in life through BTS messages in their songs. ARMY fans come together and do good things like donating and volunteering as well. They clean up after after concerts. Hayu is going to explain later on. And they do donate some donate during crisis. That was during COVID-19, and even match BTS $1 million donations as well. When BTS donated first, the fans followed afterwards. And this goes beyond fandom. It's influence. It's a positive influence on this society indeed.
And these examples shows how the fandom has evolved beyond just support into something bigger and also meaningful. And in many ways, that connection seems to translate into real-world action as well. So how else has army support shown up beyond just music, Hayo?
Yeah, so actually there was very touching moment, very memorable moment that we could see at the very recent concert held in Gwanghwamun area. So even after the performance ended and the lights went out, there was another memorable moment that stood out. So as the large crowd began to disperse, a group of fans wearing purple sashes labeled Army Volunteers appeared, and each of them holding their own dress bags. And then they just carefully moved around the area, just collecting not only visible waste, but even small pieces that might have been left behind. So what I found especially meaningful here is that this group was not just limited to Korean fans. It included people from various countries, all coming together voluntarily. So I think this really shows how the influence of BTS goes beyond their music. The energy and message that fans receive from BTS seem to naturally lead to positive actions within the community. So in that sense, the fandom has evolved into something more than just a group of supporters, and now it has become a community that shares values and contributes to society in a meaningful way.
And these are true fans because it reflects really well on BTS themselves as well.
Exactly.
So, and all this highlights how the army has grown beyond a typical fan base into a whole community built on shared values and action. It's not just about supporting the artists, but also reflecting the message into real life. And to gain a more in-depth perspective, we're going to speak with an army member who attended the BTS concert. And that conversation is coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
And joining us today is Majid, who attended the opening night of BTS's concert in Gwanghwamun last Thursday. So hello, Majid. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, Sujin. Thank you so much for having me at Arirang once again. And honestly, I feel like I'm part of Arirang family because I get to appear very often, and I love that. And just like how you was saying, I'm a fan of BTS, Arirang, and of you, Sujin. So thank you so much for having me once again.
Thank you for bringing this great energy so early in the morning. So Majid, what was the atmosphere like at the concert, and how did it compare to, I guess, other BTS concerts?
Oh, by the way, first of all, can you guys hear me properly, right? I mean,
can hear you great.
Yeah, because I was screaming my lungs out at the Arirang concert, and especially on the first day, that literally the next day I kind of lost my voice, but I'm so glad that you can hear me fine. So first of all, it was and indeed a dream came true. It was a life-changing moment for me. It was an unforgettable moment. So I was one of the lucky ones who get to attend their, the world tour Arirang, and first day that was, in Goyang. So the whole vibe, the energy, the experience, it feels difficult to sum up in few sentences. So, again, maybe some of you know that it rained a lot that day. And we were thinking like maybe they will cut down the show. Maybe, we'll get to see fewer performances, or maybe it's going to be it will dampen the whole, it will lower down the energy of members or the army. But honestly, it was mind-blowing. Like literally they were performing so well. The army, despite the rain, everyone was so full of energy. And I feel like, even Mother Nature, like rain joined to welcome this whole BTS world tour. So it was such an unforgettable and amazing experience at there.
Yes, thank you for sharing. So what's a BTS fan tradition or concert ritual you've taken part in or seen before?
Okay, so first of all, like Johyun was saying, a lot of people, like army were singing Arirang song. So, imagine 40,000 people. They are not, I mean, they were Koreans too, but a lot of were from different parts of the world. But when BTS were performing body to body, like everyone started singing Arirang. So that was such a unique experience to see so many people singing Arirang. Secondly, the fan chant. Now imagine 40,000 people in a whole stadium and everyone has to match. And that's the beauty of ARMY. That shows how much they love their artist. So ARMY starts at the same time, Kim Namjoon, Kim Seokjin, and then the whole, stadium starts shouting the fan chant. So that was once again amazing. And the purple wave. So I don't know if you guys have been to the concert or no, but like literally when the purple wave. So it starts from one end and everyone shows with their light sticks, and the purple waves goes to the end. That's also very, very one of the amazing experience to see. And oh, by the way, at the end, when BTS were performing Idol, all the members were down the stage, and they started having a round and get to see all the ARMY members very near closely. Namjoon was sitting on a king throne, so people were saying like he's not Kim Namjoon, he's King Namjoon. So that was also one of the very unique thing that we get to see at the Goyang concert.
Well, Majid, I think we can feel the vibe from the studio right now, thanks to you. Then, Majid, how has BTS actually influenced you in your life, and what do you think is a secret to their long-lasting success?
Okay, BTS has influenced me in two ways. Financially and emotionally. So when I say financially, of course, I spend a lot of money, and I love that. Every penny spent on BTS is worth spending money. I buy their Army Bomb, I buy their albums, and
Wow.
actually on their concert, I was actually supposed to fly to China. I booked the tickets 3 months ago, but when the concert was announced, I had to cancel my tickets. I was like, no, I want this concert is more important, and I was lucky to get the tickets. So of course, it affects me, it influenced me financially, but in a very positive way, because the memories that I make, last forever. And when I say emotionally, their message, their whole story, their journey, it's a beautiful journey. Like Juhyun was saying, like it's, throughout their, from start until now, they give a message of self-love or not giving up despite what happens in life. Life goes on, or not today, you should not give up, or love myself. So in some of their songs, they give the message of love yourself. So even if you say on Goyang concert, despite the rain, life goes on, you have to perform with all the energy. So these are some of the messages that influence me emotionally a lot. I get to see if something bad happens in my life, or if there are ups and downs, I get to see BTS journey as my role model. And I feel like even there are hardships, you get to keep on going. And the reason for long lasting, their influence is one of the things, like as you guys were talking about, the army, they don't just listen, they actually take, as and Sujin, you were also saying, like they don't just listen to the music, they take the message and then implement in real life. Like they donate a lot. Like Juhyun was saying Hayul was saying that they even clean up after Gwanghwamun scare. So these are some of the messages that BTS have taught the army, and that's one of the reasons their long-lasting impact, and people love them a lot. And of course, their talent, they're very fun, they're very down to earth. They are being worldwide most popular artists. They are really down to earth and so much fun to watch them also.
We did talk about, like you said, how great their fans are. And I just say, BTS is lucky to have a fan like you too. And your excitement is just so contagious.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. But honestly,
yeah,
the whole BTS concert in Goyang, it was an amazing experience. And despite the rain, even Suga was saying like it's like a water park. And we started, swimming on the stage because it was raining a lot. But I really would like to mention that one of the best thing I loved about BTS, especially at the concert, was they kept on saying that, please, army, be careful. It's raining a lot. It could be slippery. So please, careful when you are going home. Like, they were so careful for the army. They kept sharing their love and support, that please be careful, be careful. So they're so sweet, and that was one lifetime unforgettable experience.
So I guess they're not only good looking, but they're also very considerate, which is another plus, I guess. Anyways, Majid, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. By the way, you guys all look beautiful in purple dress. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just heard from a BTS fan and concert attendee what the concert was like, fan traditions he has taken part of, and what he thinks is the secret to their longevity. And with that global momentum in mind, all eyes are now on what comes next for the group. So as BTS members enter a new chapter of their career, what lies ahead of them?
Yes, of course, obviously. Well, beforehand, Majid's interview was like a testimony for him. So exciting, and I feel the vibe here from here. Well, the Korean concert is only the starting point. The tour will continue across the world, concluding in Manila, the Philippines, next March, with 85 shows in 34 different countries, cities that is set to become the biggest tour in K-pop history. Well, the tour is expected to draw millions of fans worldwide, and with each member having grown through solo activities and military service, expectations are even higher for what they will achieve all together. So all eyes are now on what kinds of records they will break next, and at this point, the only limit is there isn't one, so they're writing history right now.
Right, so it will be exciting to see how massive this tour is going to be, and the level of global demand is already proving to be quite extraordinary, as we saw from Majid as well. So how strong is the demand for, or the global demand for BTS tour right now, Hung?
Oh yeah, so we are already seeing just how strong the global demand is. So for example, in Mexico, all 3 scheduled concerts sold out in just 37 minutes.
Wow.
And following that, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum even made a public request to President Lee Jae-myung for additional BTS performances. And I think that really shows the scale of their global influence. And with this year-long tour taking place across so many cities, it is likely that BTS will continue to grow even further as artists and performers. And by the end of the tour, many people are expecting them to return with an even more refined and complete presence. At the same time, what makes their journey particularly interesting is not just their big scale, but it's the way they maintain a sense of authenticity and connection with their audience. So there is a lot of anticipation around what kind of music and content that they will bring in the future, and how they will continue to engage with their fans around the world. And lastly, in line with the message of their latest title track, Swim, which represents continuing to move forward without stopping, I think many people will keep watching their journey with excitement and support as they move ahead in their own way.
Right, so BTS's journey shows that longevity isn't just about staying relevant. It's about constantly evolving while staying true to who you are. From their music to their message and their connection with fans, that consistency has been key to their lasting impact. And if anything, this next chapter feels like less like a continuation, more like the start of something even bigger. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Hyun.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you for coming, and also Cheon.
Thank you for having me.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you'll keep swimming with BTS through their next chapter. We are News Generation.